Hi, welcome. This is Adam Ballinger again, and this is a little supplemental piece for practice this time to match some of the pieces we've done in the classroom about biomechanics. We've talked a little bit about the importance of your feet, and the feet, typically, if you're standing on them, are the first part of your body that help you stand up. When your feet are less active or underactive, that lack of pressing down into the ground results in you more leaning that way. And one of the things that you can judge in this is if you're leaning, all the body mass above wherever you're leaning from tends to lean down or tends to go down. If you're extending through or pressing through or rooting, then everything above that place that you are rooting from, and for today it's going to be the feet, everything above is essentially being pushed upwards. So the difference between lean and root, totally different. So we're going to do a little bit of practicing today, and you can practice along with this at home or just kind of study it. I'll try to give you some different views of this. Here's a simple practice routine. On your inhale, stretch up. When you come into the lunge pose for this round, take a peek down at your front foot. I have my right foot forward. And on this one, I'm going to try to maybe even exaggerate or bring a lot of extra focus to how much my toes press down and the toe knuckles press down, and then eventually how much I push my heel down, which is going to be an action from the hip. If your toes are fairly narrow, you can lift and spread them, but then replant them. We need those toes to push down and drive force, energy, mass, or prana upwards. And the toe knuckles, we need those to press down as well. If you do this thoroughly, you may see your arch lift from the action of pressing down. And if you were to hold this long enough, you might also feel a fatigue or like a lactic acid burn in the arch, and even up deeper than the calf on the back side of the leg. Let's switch to the other side. So in your lunge prep pose, take a couple moments, bring focus to the foot, and you can even maybe test it. If you're building some of that fatigue, and if you're building some of that work through the foot, it should feel like the ankle is more rigid. And sometimes you can even feel the effect of pressing down all the way up in your torso. And an experiment you can do is to take your hands off of your knee, stop pressing through the foot, and see if it feels like your head and your shoulders and your chest lean more heavy forward. And then see if you can create enough downward rooting or pressure that it feels like all the way up in the heart, chest, and shoulders. There's more lift and support for extension. Let's switch sides again. So on that first side, go to the foot first. Then try to work that push that creates upward drive or thrust. If you've been in some of the really technical classes, we get into this ground force reaction of how you push down and the reaction that you cause, and some technical explanations of that. Then try to stretch up. See if you can create a difference with your foot and how you stretch up. When you go through to switch sides, you're welcome to add the chaturanga or just go through downward facing dog bellies. Let's go ahead and switch sides. Establish your footwork. Make everything above the foot be the work that originates in the foot. So I'm not leaving my attention, I'm not pulling my attention away from the foot. I'm just building the rest of the pose on top of that. See if you can still create that upward drive, that upward force from the foot, even while you lunge lower. Good. Let's go ahead and switch sides. Establish the foot. Sometimes this even helps hold the knee and the upper leg bone, the thigh bone, the femur. Hold it straight forward. Second warrior pose. The thrust from the foot will feel different because I've positioned my body different. But it's still a super crucial part to how the spine extends out. Let's switch to the other side. Establish your footwork again, and then come into second warrior pose. And then take your time, either downward facing dog or chaturanga sequence. So this time, with your foot forward, we're going to add to the challenge. I highly recommend using a yoga block or props for this at first. We're going to try to work the foot and everything that presses down, even while we come up into a more balancing pose. So work the foot vigorously. I want you to build the rest of the pose above that. Stand all the way up. Notice any tipping or leaning or anything like that. Sometimes that tipping or leaning from above is in part related to the lack of push that's down below in the tree pose. So there is a possibility to work all sorts of different things in every pose. But for this one, what we're going to try to focus on is the relation of the foot, the toe tips, the arch, the heel, everything down there to the uprightedness and the stretch up. Go ahead and stretch up. If balancing like this is difficult, bring your hands to your heart, use a chair, use a wall, but create the relationship between the foot and the spine rising up. And then, when you're ready, slip your foot off the inner thigh and step it right back into that lunge. And stretch up. Let's switch sides. Establish your footwork. And when pressing up from the lunge into anything upright and balancing, if you can, begin to establish the hip work that presses down and drives everything above the hip taller. Right up into tree pose. Start with the hands in front of the heart or on the hips. And then remember, come back to this very important area of focus, foot and ankle. For this round, we're making tree pose about the relationship between the foot and the spine going in. We could go deeper and more broad. This is our basic exercise in the pose. If you like, try stretching it. And then bring your hands back down to your heart and slowly take the foot that was up, step it back, strong lunge, stretch up again. Chaturanga. All right, so this time, another balancing pose. We're going to come into Ardha Chandrasana. I'm not going to use a block this time, but again, I highly recommend using props when needed, something to lean on, using a block whenever it helps. Using a block here will oftentimes help somebody not have to lean so far down that they begin to uproot from whatever their base is. So when you press up this time, I highly recommend use a block or 2 blocks or a chair. Being too high isn't going to take you out of the exercise of the foot. Being very elevated up in your spine is simply going to make it easier to focus on the foot. I'm going to go at a slight angle so you can see the foot even more. So in the pose here, how much I push down at the toes can, if I train it, result in more of the action up and then out through the spine. So with no particular foot action, the spine and torso are more likely to lean. Even if I turn on these upper back muscles and low back muscles that pull up. But when I begin to press down, it's the pushing here that starts all this movement up through there. You can stretch it up, the movement of the ribs up, the movement of the spine up. It's all related to the actions of the foot pressing down. All right, second warrior pose. Again, establish your footwork. Maybe tip back, stretch up. See if you can connect the footwork to the stretch upwards and the quality of the reach through the front side of the ribs. And try to leave out a big deep side bend to the back. So stretch this by going taller and help that by pressing down more. And then switch sides. Establish your footwork again. Maybe even establish that hip work. Then, Ardha Chandrasana. Establish your footwork and see if you can not only create that effect, pressing to help lengthen and rise, rise and lengthen, creating, and see if you can feel it and find it. And again, I'm at a slight angle so you can see more. All right. And very gently, step back. Establish your footwork and your hip work. Press and drive it up. And either down dog or your vinyasa. All right, let's challenge this a little bit more. Establish your work. Press it up. Tree pose. And remember, this is all based on what you're doing at the foot. So if the foot isn't contributing to everything else, this is focusing on the actions in the foot. How you move your body mass, or for a yoga conversation, how you're moving prana with your foot. So I want to push to make my energy and mass go back upwards. So tree pose, if you're not able to continue that with the foot, and you end up kind of leaning or slouching in the pose, avoid stretching up for this exercise. You can save that for another time. But everything you stretch up, I want to support it by the foot. All right. From all the way up, or however far you go, Ardha Chandrasana. And I'm going to turn slightly to the side. You don't need to turn to the side at home to practice. I'm just giving you a full view. And then from Ardha Chandrasana, back into second warrior pose. Tip back, take a deep breath. And make your way through to the other side. Chaturanga, vinyasa, or just a downward facing dog pose. Establish all of your rooting work and press it. Tree pose. So based on the quality of the actions in your foot, decide if you want to go hands to your hips with length, hands to your heart with length, or even hands up overhead. And then from tree pose, Ardha Chandrasana. Back into second warrior pose. Take it back and drive all of this up, starting at the foot. And then make your way down, Chaturanga. Here's your short little exercise. If you practice other yoga poses, especially standing or standing balancing yoga poses, try this footwork as part of the focus or the primary focus and figure out how to make the feet support everything else. You can look at almost every part of the body and work on how it relates and supports the actions of all the others. The feet are particularly important whenever you're standing on them because everything is above them. So, the feet, very, very important. All right, this is Adam Ballinger. Hope you enjoy your practice. Add these actions into some other poses and enjoy your time. Hope to see you soon.